Father in heaven, and to you, every single one of our benefactors who are connected to us at this time. We thank you and we show our appreciation for this wonderful opportunity that has been given to us to engage in this study. And we are excited today to meet our brother Aniceto through these wonderful words that are shared with us by Andre Luis. Wherever you are, Brother Aniceto, in space and time, we thank you for your dedication. We thank you for your example. And we pray, Lord, that we are not just here today just for the sake of studying, but we are here, dear Lord, because we are truly interested in welcoming any guidance that we can receive from all of you to help us in our journey of self-improvement. Bless every single heart who is here today in both realms. And we especially think about our brothers and sisters throughout this planet at this time who are wakening up to the realities of spiritual life, the need to live a spiritual life and to engage with their own regenerative process. Bless them, Lord, and help them to stay committed to their self-development. We also ask for a very special blessing on all of our study participants, not just in this group, but in all study groups. And we pray that you continue to encourage them in engaging with diligent study. Once again, thank you. And with your permission, Master Jesus, we begin our small yet humble study. So be it. So last week, Andre Luis shared with us what he was experiencing, which Narcisa described, summarized as his mental renewal. And she encouraged him to engage in the work of study and more study and helping others in service. So here in chapter 2, go ahead, Sandra.
My screen and the text is not showing everything on the left.
Oh, I see. Is this any better?
Now does it show the right?
Okay, what about this?
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so chapter 2, we get to finally meet Aniceto. Sandra, you were asking, who is that?
Yes, I asked you before, yeah.
Okay. I told Tobias about my new plans, and I couldn't help noticing the look of satisfaction that spread across his face. Don't worry, he said kindly. You have the necessary number of work hours to justify your request. We have a large number of colleagues in communication, so it won't be hard to place you with amiable instructors. Have you met our esteemed Aniceto? I haven't had the pleasure. He is a former co-worker. He amiably continued to explain. He was with us in regeneration for some time. Afterwards, he devoted himself to self-sacrificing duties in the Ministry of Assistance, and today he is a qualified instructor of the Ministry of Communication, where he has been providing noteworthy assistance. I'll talk it over with Minister Genesio. Don't be concerned. We regard our desire as being very praiseworthy. I want to scroll up a little bit again to highlight what we're seeing, something that showed up many times in No Solar, the concept of meritocracy, if you will. or our work, things are being granted to residents in the Spirit Colony based on the work that they have done. So again, here we are reminded that about the value of work. We're not just working for working's sake, but we're working towards something. My esteemed friend left me in a sea of inexpressible contentment. I had begun to understand the value of work. Narcisa and Tobias's friendship was an unspeakably generous treasure, which the spirit of service had revealed to my soul. A new area of struggle was about to unfold to my soul. I could not miss this chance. Nosola was full of spirits who were anxious for an opportunity like this. Wouldn't it be to our advantage to offer myself willingly to this new learning experience? Also, because I was sure that I would be returning to the flesh in the not too distant future. Such an arrangement could represent an extremely important undertaking for my overall self-improvement. In this paragraph, we see exactly what Emmanuel said to us in the introduction. He reminded us, just like we were told in the Spirit's book, that spirits in the errant state, they continue to progress, right? So yes, we are given opportunities here as incarnates to progress, but even as we discarnate, we also have the opportunity to continue working and to make progress. A mysterious joy overwhelmed me completely, and a sublime hope illuminated my sentiments. Narcisa had aroused in me an ardent desire to work on behalf of others, and it now seemed to fill the empty vessel of my heart.
Hi, Ebony.
Hi.
Hi, Sandra. Do you have the hands up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sandra.
I have a question. I don't know if you can answer. It's quite a difficult one because here it says, I'm sure that I would be returning to the flesh in the not too distant future. Do you know, guys, if he has reincarnated, or we don't know that?
I don't know. I haven't read about it anywhere. What about you,
Daniel?
What about you, Daniel?
No, I don't have any new information, but from what we are reading here, it looks like it depends what we define as
time, the future.
Yeah, not distance.
Yeah. Right.
Another question. If he hasn't, he has. I think we never know that, to be honest,
Right.
Yeah.
There's really no way for us to know. I mean, I'm sure there might be people who are closer to that spirit colony in the Spiritist movement who may have knowledge of these information, but I don't know that it has been shared publicly.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I do know that I don't know if I read somewhere or if I heard it in a presentation, but I understand that Emmanuel has reincarnated.
Oh, okay.
Yes. That is the spirit mentor, or was the spirit mentor of Chico Xavier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I actually have the book on full screen so that you can see, Sandra. So if any hand is up, can somebody just let me know?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I also highlighted this part here. Narcisa had aroused in me an ardent desire to work on behalf of others. And I think true, this is something that all of us should strive to achieve within our own self, because many of us as imperfect spirits, we do things, because we know that we should. We know it brings benefit to ourselves. So, for example, studying like we're doing now. But we also have to, whatever we do, we also have to expand the good that we do so that it reaches others. And when we do something, it shouldn't just be for ourselves. We should always think about those who are, for example, in our mental sphere, in our mental network, people who are around us in the physical, that are connected to us, whom we have influence over. And so when we do things, we are doing, obviously, we don't necessarily have to say that we're doing it for them, but we're doing the things that we do with a spirit of service in mind. We're not just serving ourselves, but we're serving others. Yes, I would work. I would come to know the satisfaction of working anonymously for the happiness of others, and would seek the wondrous light of fraternity by serving them. And here I think Andre Luis is committing to himself to do this service, to take it to another elevated level, in my opinion, to work anonymously. So doing good for others without them knowing that it is him, or without him seeking any kind of self-aggrandizement or recognition from others. And again, we are always called to adopt that attitude when we engage in any work of service towards others. We don't always have to do it anonymously if we don't have the opportunity, but the idea here is to serve without any kind of looking for any kind of reward. That night, Tobias came looking for me. Always obliging, he brought me comforting news of Minister Genesio's acquiescence. With a loving smile, he invited me to accompany him. He was going to take me to Aniceto so that we could discuss the matter. I was filled with overwhelming excitement as I followed him to the home of the new personage who was about to be fundamentally linked to my life as a spirit from then on. Unlike Tobias, Aniceto had not been spiritually married to anyone in Nosolar. He was living with 5 of his former disciple friends from Earth in a comfortable building nestled among leafy, peaceful trees that stood like sentries, guarding the extensive and marvelous rose garden. Who would want to live in a house described like that in the spirit realm?
Me too.
I would. His kindly welcome made an excellent impression on me. He exuded the calm appearance of a man who had reached maturity without the delusions of inexperienced youth. Although his face expressed great enthusiasm, it revealed the healthy optimism of a heart filled with sacred ideals. He listened very serenely to my benefactor as he explained my situation, casting friendly and searching glances at me from time to time. Tobias spoke at length. He mentioned that I had been a doctor on the earth plane, but that I was now readjusting my values on the spirit plane. After observing me attentively, Aniceto offered, I don't see why anything would keep us from doing this, my dear Tobias. But we must realize that it depends on the candidate. You are aware that this colony is known as the institution of the new human. Andre is willing and ready, my friend said affectionately. Aniceto gave me a penetrating look and warned. The work we do is varied and demanding. The department under our responsibility only accepts workers interested in discovering the joy of serving others. We are mutually committed not to complain about anything at all. No one expects personal praise for having completed a useful task, and we all answer for any errors we might commit. We here are in the process of extinguishing the old personal vanities that we have brought from earth. Within the hierarchical mechanism of our obligations, we are interested only in the divine good. We realize that every constructive opportunity comes from our Father, and this conviction helps us ignore the improper demands of our lower self. I think this is a very important paragraph.
Yes, very strong.
Yeah. As I read this, it's almost as if Aniceto is sharing he's sharing the prerequisites or the requirements for entry into working with his group, right? He started off by saying that they only accept workers interested in discovering the joy of serving others, not just serving others, but finding joy in it, right? And this is something that I have always been encouraged to do in my own intuition from my guides as well. Try to, when I do something, undertake a task, try to find happiness in doing it. Don't let it become a chore or feel like I'm doing this because somebody asked me to do it, or I just feel it's my duty and so I don't really have a choice. Find a way to enjoy what you're doing, and it becomes much easier. And why is this important for us three here studying this? We all serve every Saturday as mediums helping others. And I think if we take this to heart, this advice to heart, I think it would help us to become better mediums, not just on a Saturday, but in everything that we do.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sounds good?
Sounds good.
Noticing my surprise, Aniceto made a meaningful gesture and continued. For the emergency work, whose objective is to prepare active co-workers, we have a supplementary staff that has 50 openings for trainees. At the moment, I have 3 openings left. The instructive activity is intense for those who will be providing emergency aid down on Earth. Some instructors are accompanied by all their trainees as they perform their services there. But I have adopted a different approach. I usually divide my class into specialized groups according to the professions the students are familiar with, so that they can make the best use of their preparation and practice. I currently have a Roman Catholic priest, a doctor, 6 engineers, 4 teachers, 4 nurses, 2 painters, 11 women specializing in domestic work, and 18 laborers of various types. In No Solar, we carry out the activities entrusted to us as a group, but on days when I work down on Earth, not all of my students come with me. So that is the difference that he's explaining here between how he carries out his work as compared to the other group. What strikes out at me here is the varied professions that are included as trainees. right? And I think it should remind us that here on earth, that whatever it is that we're doing, we should take it seriously, because whatever we develop in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience, this is what we're going to take with us in the spiritual realm. And that is all we're going to be able to use and to rely on to give service to others. So if you're a baker, if you're a cook, if you're a cleaner, if you're a teacher, whatever it is, it's honest work and it's an opportunity to serve, and you do it to the best of your ability. Because lo and behold, you're going to find that you're going to have to rely on those skills and those experiences, those knowledge that you have developed in your field to help others in the spiritual realm. And this is exactly what we see here, even humble work as domestic work. Everything is important. Of course, the engineers or laborers, for example, would not be denied the opportunity to acquire other knowledge that reaches beyond the realm of duties under their specialized responsibility, but it would have to consist of self-initiated efforts during the ample time that everyone receives for rest and entertainment. See that? I mean, they're not pigeonholing anyone into any specific, you're not forced to stay within your specific skill set. If you want to learn something new, you're going to be exposed to that opportunity. And he specifically says here that it is based on our own efforts. We have to take the initiative to say, you know what, I want to learn, I'm an engineer, yes, but I want to learn how to become a painter, for example. I want to be able to serve as a painter or as a laborer. And you're going to have that opportunity to learn, not during your work hours, but during the time that you have for rest and entertainment. I think some people might frown upon that. Okay. But I like that idea because it gives us opportunities to improve ourselves. With regard to our current service, then, we are interested in making the best use of our time, not only to benefit to those who need our fraternal aid, but also to help ourselves in terms of effectiveness. I was amazed as I pondered this curious approach, while Aniceto took a long pause. After submersing all of his attention in me, as if he wanted to perceive the effect of his words, he continued, "The purpose of this method is not just to create more obligation for others. Here, as on earth, the one who actually learns the most in classes and demonstrations is not the student, but the instructor, who enriches his observations and deepens his level of experience." Sandra, do you agree with that? You're a teacher, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, I am.
Yeah, and I don't know if this concept might seem revolutionary to you,
it's so
but
true.
But it is to me. I never really thought that as teachers, we're actually, well, I'm not saying I'm a teacher, but I mean our teachers are in a better position to learn more than students.
Yes, because students, they have doubts, they ask us, they challenge us, and then by the time you are, I don't know, asking for colleagues or do our research, they are one step above learning something else. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. When Minister Espiradao, I think that's how it's pronounced, Espiradao, recruited me for this job, I accepted on condition that I would not waste any time on behalf of my own betterment and education. Therefore, I don't need to extend myself to other matters. I think I've said enough for now. If you are willing, I can't possibly turn you down. I understand your most noteworthy program, I responded emotionally. It would be an honor to accompany you and receive your orders to serve. The look on Aniseto's face indicated that I had given him the answer he was looking for, and so he concluded, very well, you may begin tomorrow. So Andre was accepted. Woohoo! Turning to Tobias, he added, early tomorrow morning, send our friend to the Messenger Center. We will be involved in active study there and will make sure that Andre is given the bonuses according to communication guidelines. Quite pleased, we thanked him. Then I said goodbye to Tobias, filled with a new sense of hope. Any comments, any questions about the chapter on Aniceto?
Yep.
Shall we move on then?
Yes, please.
Okay. At the Messenger Center. The next day, I listened to Narcisa's lengthy, thoughtful comments on my new endeavor and then headed for the Messenger Center in the Ministry of Communication. The always helpful Tobias went along in spite of the huge amount of work he still had to do. I was fascinated when we arrived at the group of majestic buildings that comprised the institution's headquarters. The complex was so big that I could have sworn I had come upon what looked like several universities linked together. Wide patios filled with groves and gardens invited uplifting inner reflection. Tobias aroused me from my enchantment and exclaimed, the center is very large. This department of our spirit colony performs some very complex activities. Don't think that the buildings we can see from this spot are all there is to the institution. This part contains only the central administration and a few buildings for general teaching and preparation. But is this huge organization restricted only to transmitting messages? I asked curiously. My companion smiled meaningfully and explained. Don't get the idea that this is all just a type of postal service. The center prepares spirits for the purpose of transforming them into living letters of rescue and aid to other spirits who are suffering in the umbral, on Earth's surface, and in the darkness. Could you really believe that so much work was just meant for broadcasting news? I think this is fascinating, and again, for us, it helps us to adopt the attitude that we are living examples of the very things that that we do and we practice, right? If we're engaged in the work of the good with a group, with a community, we should actually, it's not just about doing what we do for doing its sake, but we live what we are doing, right? And in doing so, we help to transform our own selves. Could you really, okay, I read that already. Broaden your outlook. Our service here is a copy of the type of service that is being carried out in the most diverse spirit cities of the higher planes. Many, many spirits are prepared here to spread hope and consolation and to provide instruction and counsel in the various arenas of the planet's evolution. I don't mean just invisible emissaries, however. We also train tightly knit groups for reincarnation, and mediums and instructors leave here by the hundreds every year. Those who will be involved in giving spiritual comfort are trained by our messenger center and are sent to the incarnate realms in considerable numbers. What are you saying? I asked, surprised. According to what you have stated then, their work of providing spiritual enlightenment should be extremely developed in the world. Tobias gave me an odd look, smiled serenely, and explained. My dear Andre, you haven't considered the fact that this preparation in and of itself doesn't mean they'll be successful. Thousands of qualified messengers leave, but the ones who actually succeed are quite rare indeed. Some manage to accomplish their task partially, but most others completely fail completely. Real service is not just an idea. It involves effort, without which the work can neither begin nor prevail. I think this is an opportunity to pause here again, because they're also speaking for us. It's a moment for reflection, for our own reflection, because when you think about all of these, it's not just mediums, but people who reincarnate with the task of helping us evolve spiritually, bringing spiritual enlightenment to the earth, helping us to improve ourselves here. They're sharing with us that most of them fail in their task. And not that I'm saying that we here, we have that task, but whatever it is we came here to do, or we can do as part of our reincarnatory plan, it tells us that we really, really have to be diligent in our work, in our efforts, because it's not necessarily easy, right? And we constantly have to stay in touch with our spirit guides, with our mentors, maintain an attitude of prayer, which is what keeps us in touch with the higher realms, so that we actually do our best here. Whatever it is that we're doing, even if it's just, I'm not saying it's simple, but an everyday task, such as being a parent. Ranks of mediums and instructors leave here for the physical world with special training, because benefactors of higher spirituality need selfless and altruistic mediums in order to enhance humankind's redemption. But when these messengers forget their missionary spirit and their dedication to their fellow beings, they usually become worthless instruments. There are mediums and mediumship, doctrinal instructors and doctrine, just as there are plows and farmers. A plow may be excellent, but if the farmer lacks the desire to use it, all the plow will inevitably produce is rust. The same applies to psychic faculties and great knowledge. Mediums may be endowed with a very powerful mediumistic ability, but if they cannot see beyond their own interests, they will completely fail in their assigned task. Believe me, my dear friend, all constructive work carries with it its corresponding struggle. And again, this is why we not just pray for ourselves, but we also pray for those who have this kind of work here to do. You don't necessarily have to know them by name, but you can look around and see people in their profession, and for example, leaders of countries and so on. And you should know that the task is something that isn't easy, and they need all the praise and the support that they can get. Those who endure the hardships and setbacks of the front lines are very rare indeed. An overwhelming percentage of mediums avoid facing the heavy gunfire. Countless workers retreat just at the moment when the task offers the most valuable opportunity. Quite impressive, I thought. That really surprises me. I never imagined that such messengers were prepared here for life in the physical realm. Ah, my friend, said Tobias, smiling. Did you really think that the work of doing good would be limited to simple automatic circumstances? On earth, our spiritual sight tends to get tarnished by outward expressions of worship and religious activity, leading us to believe we can resolve any problem with a prayer-like posture. However, getting down on one's knees doesn't resolve the fundamental questions of the spirit. Nor does the greatest spiritual growth entail merely worshiping the Divine One. The truth is that every act of humility and love is worthy of respect and is holy, and the Lord undoubtedly will grant us His blessings. Nonetheless, it is imperative to remember that maintaining and keeping the vessel clean enough to receive such blessings is a duty that is fitting for us, so we do not prepare mere postal clerks at this center, but spirits who have become living letters from Jesus to incarnate humankind. At least that is the program as defined by our spirit administration. Moved, I fell silent, pondering the grandeur of these teachings. After a long pause, my companion proceeded. Because we are almost all still linked to a long history of heinous wrongdoings that have deformed our personalities, few of us succeed. In each new life of incarnate endeavor, we believe much more in the demeaning tendencies of our past than in the divine potential of the present, a fact which always has negative implications for the future. And so that is how we proceed there. We cling to evil and forget the good, sometimes foolishly interpreting our difficulties as forms of punishment, whereas for those of us who have eyes to see, every obstacle offers a truly precious opportunity for growth. So here we are encouraged to, forget the past. Even in our current incarnation, the past of our current incarnation, if we adopt that attitude of focusing on the present moment that we have and looking forward to the future, we can't go wrong with that attitude. Hundreds of spirits were pouring into the large building, whose stairs we ascended in lively conversation. The features of the marvelous atrium impressed me with their imposing beauty. Varieties of flowers previously unknown to me adorned the porticos, spreading lively colors and delectable fragrances. Breaking my enchantment, Tobias explained. The various groups of trainees are heading for their classes. Let's look for Aniceto in the teachers' department. We went down vast hallways, encountering veritable crowds of spirits involved in animated conversation while looking for our classrooms. We found our obliging friend from the previous evening as part of a small group that seemed to be involved in a very discreet conversation. He embraced us serenely with a smile. Well, well, he said kindly and good-naturedly. I've been expecting our new student since early this morning. Tobias explained that he was in a great hurry, so the noble instructor explained. From now on, Andre will be under my care. Go back in peace. I was filled with emotion as I said goodbye to my companion. Noticing my natural timidity, Aniceto asked a service assistant, "Call Vicente for me, would you?" And turning back to me, he explained, "Vicente has been my only medical trainee until now. I'll put you together because of your professional affinity." Less than 3 minutes passed before Vicente was standing in front of us. "Vicente," said Aniceto matter-of-factly, "this is Andre Luis, our new co-worker. He used to be a doctor like yourself. I believe you will feel at ease with each other because you share the same background." Vicente embraced me, showing how pleased he was, and after encouraging me with beautiful, stimulating words, he asked our guide, "When should we look for you for today's studies?" Aniceto thought for a moment and replied, "Explain our regulations to our new candidate and join us for instructions right afternoon." End of chapter. Any comments? Any thoughts?
Yes, something that caught my attention every time I read something about André Luiz or Chico Xavier is how somehow we have this kind of people smiling, people are friendly. Oh, Vincent embraced me. So you see how feelings are physically demonstrated. And to be honest, that I think we lack this, at least, sorry to say, but here in the UK. Because in my school, for example, I can't touch my students just to say, "Oh, well done," or "well done." No. So there is not, so I can smile, I do my best, but it's a shame because you see that physical, this interaction, a pure, honest interaction is beautiful. It's a shame.
I know, and we can actually look at these books again, like I said, as living examples that these instructors are giving us as to how model teachers should be,
yes.
Right? The kind of environment that we ought to be in to thrive as teachers. They show us that environment, and not just we as teachers to thrive, but also the students. It's for everybody's benefit.
Yeah.
So I suppose the best you can do, Sandra, is to just exude the love that you have to your students, no matter what, while still keeping with the regulations, right? You can always smile, you can embrace them with your emotions,
Exactly.
And just continue doing that.
Yeah.
But in the spiritual realm, in higher colonies and so on, we have that freedom to express the true love that we have to our students and to everybody that we meet without any kind of consideration for political correctness or human conventions that keep us limited.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, so I am going to start the next chapter. Shall I? Yes. Okay. Vicente's story. So we just read that Vicente was introduced as a co-candidate or a co-student with Andre by Aniceto. So what is Vicente's story? I couldn't possibly express how happy I was with my newfound friendship. Vicente had a very peaceful-looking face. It displayed an expression of intelligence and lucidity, and radiated affection and goodness, sensibility and understanding. He told me he was overjoyed at having found a fellow physician, and he arranged a room for me conveniently close to his, demonstrating his great fraternal kindness. He was my first colleague from my former profession. He too had recently arrived from the spheres of Earth, and he was the first with whom I felt a more direct connection. So Andre is explaining to us that Vicento is the first former doctor that he met in No Solar. And so because of the similarity of their backgrounds, he formed that very special connection with him, which is natural, right? They have lots that they can relate to. We freely exchanged ideas about the surprises that we had encountered since our arrival. We commented on the problems resulting from worldly misconceptions, the myopia of the planet's limited medicinal science, and the profound and fascinating issues surrounding spirit medicine. Although Vicente had not yet made any visits to the incarnate plane in a service capacity, he had an extraordinary admiration for Aniceta and brought me up to date on the valuable studies they had delved into together. He was full of enthusiastic ideas. In a little over an hour, our friendship had become like the sentiment of two brothers who had been united by spiritual ties for a long time. My new companion had won my boundless trust. Displaying great tact, he asked about my situation regarding my Earth relatives, and I responded with a brief account of my unusual adventure when I had learned of my widow's second marriage. I told my story as expressively as possible, becoming quite emotional during my narrative. With each culminating particular of what had occurred, I intentionally slowed down my account, emphasizing my former sufferings and relating seemingly insurmountable adversities. Vicente listened in silence, smiling from time to time. When I finished my moving account, he placed his right hand on my shoulder and murmured, "You mustn't think you were unfortunate and misunderstood. You should realize, my dear Andre, that in fact you were extremely fortunate." "What do you mean?" "Your Zelia respected you as a companion to the last of your days. And under such circumstances, a second marriage is not at all surprising. In my case, however, things were much worse." Given my understandable surprise, my new friend continued, "Let me explain." He thought for a few seconds as if he were putting his memories in order, and then proceeded. "You can't imagine how intense a dream of love my marriage was. Soon after receiving my professional diploma, at age 25, I married Rosalinda. I was radiant with happiness. I brought my wife not only into a comfortable and secure financial situation, but also into the treasures of my affection and devotion. My happiness knew no bounds. In a short time, 2 little children enriched our happy home. My sense of well-being was inexpressible. Because of my bank reserves, I didn't have to specialize in clinical work, but instead devoted myself passionately to the laboratory. Because of my propensity for that type of work, it wasn't long before I gained the trust of many colleagues and various study centers, which resulted in increased research opportunities and shining results. Rosalinda was my primary and most capable co-worker. From time to time, she got bored handling test tubes, but she was able to repress such little annoyances for the sake of our domestic happiness. She seemed to understand me completely. In my eyes, she was a dedicated mother and a flawless companion. Well, 10 years of conjugal bliss had passed when my brother Eleuterio, an unmarried lawyer, somewhat older than myself, decided to settle close by. Rosalinda went out of her way to be attentive to him, since he was a member of my family. Eleuterio came into our home as a true brother. Although he actually roomed in a hotel, he took part in our evenings at home and was always charming and eager to please. From that time on, though, I noticed that my wife had begun changing little by little. She demanded that I hire an assistant to replace her at work, claiming that our little ones needed more dedicated maternal attention. I happily consented. After all, it was an arrangement that was important for our children's welfare. However, Rosalinda's transformation started to become more noticeable. She began to avoid the laboratory altogether, where we had happily embraced so many times after seeing our most important experiments crowned with success. She preferred to go to the cinema or to a retreat with Eleuterio. I was greatly saddened by this, but I had no reason to doubt my brother's behavior. He had always been considerate at home, although he was bold and egotistical in his professional life. My home life, which had always been so happy, had now become one of rather bitter loneliness, which I tried to evade with persistent, honest work. Things continued like that when an odd transformation altered my life. A small pustule in one of my nostrils had never bothered me in any way before, but after I injured it slightly, it turned into an extremely serious condition. In just a few hours, it broke out into septicemia. My colleagues gathered around my sickbed in a veritable assembly. However, all their care was useless. Their best attempts at helping me were null and void, and I realized that my end was rapidly approaching. Rosalinda and Eleuterio appeared to be heart-stricken, and even now I can see their looks of anguish at the moment when the mist of death shrouded my corporeal eyes. At this point, Vicente remained quiet for a long while, as if focusing on his most painful memories, and then he continued less enthusiastically. After a period of pitiful troubles in the lower zones, and after I had recovered in No Solar, I discovered the whole truth. Upon returning to my Earth home, I was in for a big surprise. Rosalinda was now married to Eleuterio. Our stories are almost identical, I exclaimed. Not really, he protested with a smile. And he continued, another surprise rent my heart. Only when I returned to my home did I learn that I had been the victim of a hateful crime. My own brother had devised the deviously wicked plot. My wife and he had fallen hopelessly in love and had yielded to the temptations of the flesh. Divorce was not possible. Even if the law had allowed it, it would have been scandalous for Rosalinda to leave me to publicly live with her brother-in-law. However, Eleuterio remembered that she and I had worked in the laboratory together, and he suggested that she infect me with a certain microbial culture, which he took upon himself to obtain as soon as possible. My poor wife wasted no time, and taking the opportunity while I was asleep, She injected the deadly virus into the tiny, slightly opened pustule. And that's my story in a nutshell. I was dumbstruck. And those criminals? I asked. Vicente smiled slightly and said, Rosalinda and Eleuterio are apparently living together quite happily. They are dedicated materialists for the time being and are enjoying their great fortune and high social standing in the transitory world. But what about justice? I inquired, disturbed. Look, Andre, he calmly explained, everything comes in its time, the good as well as the bad. First the seed, then the fruit. Noticing how sad I looked, however, Vicente concluded, let's not talk about this anymore. It's almost time for class. Let's attend to our essential needs and help our loved ones who are still far away in the earthly circles. Don't be too concerned. In order to produce fruit, the tree does not complain about its dead leaves. For us at this time, my friend, evil is the mere result of ignorance and nothing more. How many of us here are dumbstruck and dumbfounded and surprised by this story?
Very surprised.
What surprises me more, and it is inspirational for me, is his attitude that I'm highlighting here. And I know that it comes from his own mental renewal and the education that he has received to renew his mind, to think about the perpetrators of this crime as really and truly, as first and foremost, as his brothers and sisters. You can tell that he has forgiven them. And he is trusting in the justice of God, which is exactly what he is telling Andre to do. That everything comes in time. And he has decided to focus on his future, well, his present, the opportunities that he has to learn, and also his future in improving himself. He goes on to say that in order to produce fruit, the tree doesn't complain about its dead leaves. So he knows for himself that he must improve himself. He has to continue on his evolutionary journey in order to become better and produce fruits. And in doing so, even though we encounter a lot of difficulties, in his case, injustices, well, we know that no one really is a victim, right? We all get exactly what we have done to others in past lives or in the present. But nevertheless, he experienced this crime, and he's able to forgive them, and he's not looking at, himself as a victim. He has found a way to pick himself up. He's in the spiritual realm, and he knows that obviously life goes on. He's alive, so really and truly, he's not dead. So why lament over something that didn't really happen? They basically just killed his body, but he is alive and well in the spiritual realm. And this is what we also are encouraged to do whenever we encounter, of course, this is a very dramatic example.
Yeah.
But the lessons are still the same. It applies to us in our lives. Even if whatever difficulty we endure in our current life, let us not dwell on them. And let us see it as an opportunity for us to improve ourselves, to learn, to grow, to forgive somebody who has hurt us. Because when we forgive, we also reap the benefits of our ability to forgive others. And focus on the journey ahead, and trust in the fact that God's justice, it covers each and every single one of us, and we are not in control of when that justice is going to arrive. All we are required to do is to just simply trust in it, that it's going to happen. But I mean, from our earthly perspective, looking at it, I think it's very dramatic. It's a very dramatic story. I mean, he started off by telling us just how much in love they were and how beautiful their marriage was. And just a few sentences later on, you know, he explained just that dramatic change. And I just found it surprising. So that's the end. Any last comments, thoughts?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, Sandra. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's say a quick prayer to wrap up. Heavenly Father, once again, we are just extremely grateful, and we thank everyone who participated in the study, who shared from both realms. And we pray, dear Lord, that, we find the courage. We pray that we don't need it. But if we do, we pray that we find the courage to absorb these lessons and apply them in our lives, dear Lord. May we have a wonderful rest tonight as we go to bed. And we look forward to a new day that offers opportunities for us to renew ourselves. Lord, we thank you. And with your permission, we end this beautiful study. So be it.
Thank you, Ebony. Thank you,
You're
Sandra.
welcome.
It
You're
was nice to see
welcome.
you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
this.
Dan.